I cannot believe it. We're officially in my favourite month of the year. September is here. And to celebrate the 1st of September, I am joined by the epic Laura Bryan from Mind Nourishing on the podcast today. Laura is somebody that I've known, gosh, feels like a long time, but actually it was only about 2.5 years, which is relatively short for people who've bought from me. I tend to have clients who have bought from us and known me for years and years and years. So Laura is one of our, I guess, can we call her a newbie? Yeah, let's do that. She's one of our newbies. But in the time that Laura has known me, and that I've known her, more importantly, she has been absolutely making waves in the nutrition space. Laura's speciality is actually supporting gut health to help companies improve the mental health of their employees. And it's a really, really interesting specialism that she has. It's been translated to companies in a variety of different ways. Now, Laura isn't working in a kind of area of specialism that people would normally think of as being supremely money making or having the ability to generate large contracts, but she has absolutely smashed those false beliefs out of the park. And she's also working with an industry that historically has been talked about as being not massively profitable or not having tons of budget to do things. And again, she's working in that specialism, in that industry, smashing those false beliefs around the money that it is possible to earn, the contract size that it's possible to put forward, and actually really changing the face of nutrition for employees and the ways that local communities can be impacted by big organizations. I really hope that you enjoy listening to this conversation as much as I've enjoyed recording it. And as always, if you do enjoy it, please do go into the show notes, grab Laura's LinkedIn profile and send her a little message and let her know what most resonated with you about her journey to selling successfully to corporate companies. Welcome to the Selling to Corporate podcast, where we're going to be challenging your sales beliefs around selling to corporate organizations and help you increase your bottom line profits every single month. I am Jessica Lorimer, your sales expert and guide in this world of selling to corporate companies, skyrocketing your company sales and making the impact that you really want in the world. Now, don't forget, if you do enjoy the show today, please do head over to iTunes and leave us a review. But enjoy this episode, and I am really looking forward to sharing some epic sales wisdom with you. Okay, I'm so excited to have you on the show, particularly after 2 weeks in Corfu, learning how to be an NLP master and karate chopping everything. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Jess. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited about this. And we were just talking, for those of you who weren't behind the scenes on the old pre-recorded chat, but we were just talking about the fact that Laura now is the one to watch in fights because she can successfully chop through wood with her bare hands, which is pretty impressive.
Who would have known, eh? I didn't know I had the kind of mental strength to chop wood with my hand, but obviously, apparently I do.
Like the bare brawn and muscle, like it's incredible. I'm genuinely excited about this. And I'm also wondering whether next time I see you at something, whether you can just randomly chop a chair for me.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, a table midway through. Yeah, just let me know when you want me to
For
perform.
dinner, you're like, bring the bill or I'm going to chop your table in half. Amazing. I love it. For the benefit of everybody listening, would you explain who you are and what you do?
Yes, so my name's Laura Bryan. So my business is called Mind Nourishing. And basically, the business is all around supporting people to improve their mental well-being through the power of food. And also now through mindset coaching, hence the chopping wood with my hand. But basically, yeah, so I support a lot of organisations, particularly kind of those within the housing and construction sector, to reduce staff mental health related sickness through nutrition, education, and mindset support. So that is my bag.
It's a huge area, isn't it? Because, nutrition's one of those things we've seen a lot of nutritionists over the last maybe 18 months who are now thinking about selling their services to corporates. But I'd never seen, when I was in my corporate career, nobody ever said to me, Jess, do you fancy a session with a nutritionist? Or Jess, we're going to get in a nutritionist to talk about diet for everybody. It's on Tuesday, fancy showing up. So was it ever something that you'd considered selling to corporates before? Because it's always seemed to me like more of an individual piece of work.
Yeah. And I think my experience with it, so when I used to work in corporate, I remember like once in a while there might have been like a poster by the coffee machine, and it was that awful poster where it was like an apple with like a tape measure around the waist.
Oh yeah.
you know the one. So basically I remember it just always being about weight loss, or like there might be like a weighing club or something in work. And no, it wasn't my kind of initial goal to be that person for sure, but also it wasn't particularly my goal to work in corporate, if I'm honest. Like when I set up my business, it was very much targeted towards B2C. I wanted to kind of create groups. I kind of had a lot of like one-on-one clients. Basically, I wanted to be like Instagram famous and travel the world, you know, that
and
kind
I love
of
that you're admitting that, because I think it's a big thing. Like, I think everyone at some point, even me probably, definitely in like 2015, has wanted to be Instagram famous and just sort of like sit around, drink green juice and like post forth your wisdom.
And then you start doing it and you find out, well, I found it just horrendous. I didn't want to be online all the time. And I actually like quit my job because I wanted to actually go and enjoy holidays and not have to then record it and be like, I am on holiday, here's my Instagram. But it wasn't really until lockdown that I started kind of thinking a little bit more about delivering to corporate. And I came to one of your like master classes as part of another program I was on. And I was like, wait a minute, this sounds like down my alley. Like this sounds like something I could do. Like I wanted to basically just have more impact. I was kind of done working on one-to-one support, and I just wanted to be able to share my passion like more to the masses and support kind of individuals, but through their workplace, which is what kind of got me excited.
And it's a really interesting, because like you said, the area itself has really grown. I'm like you, I remember the apple with the tape measure. And I also remember and this might have just been in sales environments, but we used to have a lot of things about like liver issues because we used to drink so much. So it was always like posters about, you know, how much is a glass of wine in units, and
this is your pickled liver, like in a
exactly. You're like, oh, lovely. So it was either about weight loss, or it was about, you know, trying to reduce probably some of the bad behavior that people had when they were drinking heavily, or, you know, other things that they do in sales environments. But it's an interesting growth piece, because I think a lot of nutritionists, particularly when they qualify, they're like, oh yeah, great, they do exactly what you do. I want to help individuals. And, you know, it's really, for me, it's quite sad to watch, because you watch people who are super fired up, who've gone and certified, who've worked really, really hard to get qualifications that are incredibly scientific in basis, and you've had to do a lot of exams and all this kind of thing. And you come out into the wide world and everyone's suddenly like, yeah, just post on social media then. And you kind of go from science-based numbers, facts, years to hope and pray, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, I was just really, really conscious that it wasn't just kind of like pictures of pretty food. Like that wasn't helping people. Like however much like I like taking a picture of my salad, like that wasn't really helping people. And I just got to the point where in lockdown, like mental health issues were kind of like off the scale. And I knew my special interest was around that gut brain connection. And I started talking to a few corporate organizations, and what was quite exciting was that it was like a little bit fresh. Like they were used to that apple with the kind of tape measure. They were used to people coming in, telling them that they needed to cut out sugar and all of their fun and joy in the world, and cake wasn't allowed. And like, I quite liked the fact of coming in and being like, well, actually, I love cake too. Let's not get rid of cake, but let's just like that would be an absolute tragedy. But like, let's just start kind of thinking a little bit about how we can use that power that we've learned about in our gut to actually like maximize our mental well-being. So rather than like focusing on taking away, when at that time everything was kind of taken away, it was at that point like, right, what can we add in? Like, how can we support your gut so that you can naturally start supporting your mood? And I think people started to get quite interested in it. So it was quite a nice time, I think, when I started doing that work, that gut health was becoming more of a thing.
And gut health has been huge. I mean, obviously, I almost died earlier this year, as we all know. And, it turns out gut health is really important. And now something that I do prioritize. I'm up there with my fermented foods now. Thank God I love sauerkraut. But it's that kind of thing that it's a really interesting angle for you. It's also really valuable for companies because the reduction in mental health related sickness is a massive, massive commercial transformation for companies that traditionally have kind of not put mental health to the wayside, but assumed that mental health means, okay, we have to just do mental health first aid and that's pretty much our lot, or we refer somebody to a doctor, or we refer them to medication. And what you were saying and are saying even now is actually there are things that your employees can do in their own time to improve overall life and going to contribute in this massive way.
Yeah, and I think it works well. Like, I think nutrition in the corporate setting works well because most people eat their lunch at work. Like, I think it's around like 60% of your food take is actually at work. So you don't like, you're obviously, you're not going to have your employer like sat, they're not nutritionists or nutritional therapists. They're not going to be sat over being like, oh, everybody, let's eat this for lunch. But I think the power is that once you start kind of educating people in maybe even some basics around nutrition and adding protein to their meals and things like that, that is a habit that they can then start to implement every day in their working career. And it's kind of sometimes those initial workshops, even if it is just an awareness workshop, just really plants a seed. And I've had kind of emails from like employees like a few weeks after being like, God, like people are still just talking about eating the rainbow. Like it's kind of strange how people just love talking about food. Like we're all natural foodies at heart. We love talking about it. Which is why it's quite nice that people generally don't like talking about their mental health. Like, obviously some people do, but generally people don't. But if we can combine that chattiness that people have around food and bring in mental well-being and how it impacts your mood at the same time, it ticks a lot of box for kind of corporate employers, but also it has the real impact for those people on the ground as well, which is what we want.
It's really nice for you as well to hear weeks and months afterwards that people are still using something. And I think that's really interesting. If we look back at your point earlier around, I wanted to create groups, I wanted to bring people together. It's exactly what you've created. You're just getting paid more to do it. And, because it's not the individuals themselves, there's also that easier sell because they're not thinking, oh, this is my disposable income that I'm spending on me instead of whatever else they would normally be paying out for. But it's their employer that started the journey. And that's a really nice, pressure-free environment to learn.
Yeah, because I think that's potentially where I went wrong in the early stages of my business, is that I was just so desperate to help people who were calling up that I was like, right, have it for free. Like, I really want to help you. And apparently that doesn't work for a long-term business. So it was great when I started to learn more about kind of, the structure around selling to corporate and actually having that security for myself so I can continue to do what I want to do as well.
And that's always a win because, as we know, you don't want to run a very expensive hobby.
Yes.
I love it. So just track us back. So you started exploring during lockdown. You're like, right, can I potentially sell to corporates? And then I think it was probably maybe a year later that you came to the Converting Corporate event in London, which was very exciting. Got to meet Laura in person. Can confirm she does eat cake and drink alcohol on occasion. Normal human being.
Horror.
The nutritionist is out. So what happened in between that time? Because obviously you thought, okay, maybe I should start targeting corporate companies.
Yeah.
You were having some interesting conversations.
Yeah.
What was difficult about it? What made it hard for you to think, well, actually, this is an easy process, off I go?
Yeah. So I think for me, I just didn't really have a structure of what I should be doing. So what I tended to do was like find some local housing associations, because that was where I was focusing on. So I got the idea around kind of being specific through the podcast and things like that. So I started kind of like reaching out. But it's quite funny looking back, because then it used to be like, oh, I'll email them once and I'll wait. And it's like, right, any minute now they're going to reply. And then you kind of get a little bit disheartened. And then it's like, right, well, they don't want to speak to me, so fine, I'll go to someone else. And it's quite funny now looking back, because obviously through the support with you, I've got more of a process now, and realised that, and for myself as well, no, like people are busy, like people are really busy. But I think I was kind of doing things a little bit half-hearted in terms of email out. If I didn't get a reply, then didn't work out this time and I'll try someone else. And it meant that I was getting some smaller contracts, but it was like really low level, and I wasn't particularly then even following them up after to upsell. So I was kind of there, but I wasn't doing it properly.
It's really hard, isn't it? Because looking back, I always think to myself, when I look back at the beginning of my business, I'm like, I was definitely doing everything I possibly could.
Yeah.
And then I look back and I think there were quite a lot of things that I was not doing as much as I possibly could. But at the time, I really felt like I was. If you'd have asked me, I'd have burnt myself on a stake being like, yep, I'm 100% doing all the things I need to do every single day. It's only with the benefit of hindsight that I'm like, oh, actually, okay, did I do these things? Did I follow up as much as I could? Did I, insert objectives here? And sometimes we do and sometimes we don't.
Yeah. And I was like super busy. I was like writing blogs, and the website was, but I wasn't sharing them with anyone. Like I was just hoping they'd all appear. But yeah, like I'm kind of grateful for that journey, because it is, well, first of all, it's quite funny looking back on it and being like, wow, look at that proposal I sent off early days. But yeah, it kind of, I guess you appreciate it more when you actually do have a structure, and it's you take it less to heart when someone doesn't reply. You're like, it's fine, I'll email them next time, and they might.
Yeah, and I think it's a really big shift, I always think, between the B2C sales mindset and the B2B one. B2C is very much put as much content out as you can and hope that people find it, or that you'll go viral in some capacity, and that suddenly loads of people just come beating down your door.
Yeah.
B2B is much more about that proactive, okay, let's target, let's be qualified, let's follow up, let's do the right things in the right order. And then over time, through selling and great delivery, you end up getting all those inbound leads that you wanted B2C, except they're qualified because they've come from decent sources, and not just from having to write 1,000 blogs on the internet and hoping that one of them is going to be searchable on Google.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I think it's just a shift in mindset, and I think because I was going from that B2C kind of like way of doing it, I tried to transfer that into kind of like the B2B world. And I think the first event I came to, the converting corporate event, yeah, that was just like, oh, I made like so many notes, because I was like, oh my goodness, this is like a process. And then I think I even like following on from that, I kind of started like selling like proper like proposals and getting proper proposals in. And then I came again, I think, to the converting corporates. I was like, I need more.
And you emailed me. I remember getting an email from you where you're like, I've just sold this contract to a client and it's epic. And I was like, I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.
And then you came to the second one. And then obviously you joined the C-suite. And that was really interesting because, you're somebody who is incredibly like head down focused, just does the things. I've never heard you complain about anything. And it's not to say that lots of people do, but like, I've never heard you be like, oh God, I just can't be bothered. Like you are just, right, I'm doing this thing. This is the process, off I go. Yeah. So how did you find it?
I found it was just like a complete different way of working. I think before, like all of my lead gen would be just, I don't know, like maybe doing a bit on LinkedIn or trying to find like businesses, or even just emailing people I used to know, which is all like fine. Like I still do all of that stuff now. But just the fact of like having that clear structure of like finding your like top organizations and then getting like the 3 to 5 leads in each one, and like all of a sudden I was sending out loads of like more emails than I've ever sent before, and I was actually getting more emails back than ever before. And then it kind of was the whole process of, right, now I actually have to speak to these people on Teams calls. But it just kind of, for me, it just started like bringing my business to life a little bit. Like at the time I was still working part-time, trying to do this business on kind of like 3 days a week. But slowly but surely, like I started being able to do more. Like I quit my other job, and now it's just like, if I like, well, I can't go through a week now without sending out like emails. Like it just feels weird. Like I don't feel like I've had a good day at work if I haven't sent out like at least kind of like 10 lead gen emails. So it's just completely shifted. Like I'm just way more proactive rather than just sitting in my little office hoping that someone's gonna get in touch.
And it's a really cool way to be. I think some of the things that people often say to me is that they feel like they're more in control of the result. And I
Yeah.
think that's a big shift when you move B2C, B to B2B sales. In B2C, like we know, you post something, you hope that it'll do well, you hope that it'll get likes or shares or engagement or sales. With B2B, you're constantly in control of, well, I can send this many emails and I can send this many follow-ups and I can do these things. And I think sometimes we even know that. We know we're in control of the process, but we just don't know what to say. So we'll get into a process and be like, yeah, I'd love to follow that up, but I feel awkward. I don't know how. Maybe I feel a bit like I'm going to be burdening them or something. And obviously that's quite a different feeling as well.
Yeah, and having the kind of like the like templates that you offer, I think that was really helpful. Even in fact, like in terms of the proposal, like just before jumping on, actually, I still use the template to kind of follow up, because I was like, oh, actually, right, it's kind of the deadline's in a few days for this proposal. I need to follow up. Like, right, where's Jess's? Like, I probably know it all now, but it's still like a little comfort blanket. And it's just kind of, yeah, having that clear structure takes less brain power, because I think what I used to do was I used to create big fluffy emails that like to try and just be really friendly. And now it's like, I can still be friendly, but not spend hours sending an email. So just getting to the point and making it as easy as possible for that stakeholder to just know what I'm asking, really. It's quite simple, isn't it? But you kind of sometimes try and make things a little bit harder for yourself.
Well, I think we try and develop rapport, and we do it in the wrong way. Like we try and be almost overly friendly because we are so keen that they don't reject us or be like, oh my God, how did you get my email address? That we're like, just so you know, this is what I do, and I just want to pop into your inbox and do X, Y, Z. And
hope you don't mind.
I hope it's not a burden for you and it hasn't ruined your week entirely. But it's that kind of thing, and it is different. It's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of operating, and it's actually about moving towards treating your business more like a business instead of that kind of relationship that we build with consumers, which is almost, okay, well, how can we involve them in our world? That's how the social media influencers and things are making money, and they're bringing people in. And you don't have that need to involve stakeholders in your life. They don't need to know what you're eating for dinner. They don't care what you're up to or when you're in or out of the office. And that's, I find it really relaxing in some ways that they're not interested.
Yeah. And I do like, funny you should say that, in terms of that, like feeling like a business, like I do feel more like a business owner now. I think before, maybe it was a little bit of a hobby, I guess. I was making money from it, but not huge amounts. But now when I sit on kind of like business development calls, I do feel like not the expert, but I know what I'm talking about. I know the sector. I can kind of talk to them a little bit about insights, and it's quite exciting that you can have those conversations and not feel like a total imposter, which was great. So but now I think it's just it's enjoyable to kind of build those relationships, get work from it, and I'm at the point now where people are kind of coming back to me, which is, like you said at the beginning, like that place that you want to be, where you're not chasing all the time. People are coming to you, which is a nice place to be in.
I love it. So tell us about some of the favorite things you've done, because you've actually worked on some really interesting projects. And I remember thinking when you signed up, I was like, oh, nutrition, yeah, that would be great. Like, and here are some of the things that I would have imagined you could do. And I thought about it as being like almost you can run sessions for companies, you can run workshops, you can get people who come to you one-to-one afterwards and things like that. But
Yeah.
actually, you've worked on a lot of things that are a lot more interesting than anything that I could have imagined.
Yeah, or me really. It's quite exciting how like things can kind of change, and it keeps it interesting basically, which is what I like. So my kind of bread and butter kind of delivery is all around like how food affects your mood workshops, or eating for energy, or rest and digest. They're the kind of staff well-being workshops that I love doing and get really good feedback. So they're the kind of the core part of the business, the like awareness building sessions. But recently there's been kind of I've found like a lot of organizations I'm speaking to, especially within the construction kind of sector, they're desperate to be able to provide social value to the communities that they build in. There's a lot of kind of government requirements, and their clients are wanting them to do more within the communities. So actually what I deliver is transferred really nicely to actually delivering in communities as well, but through a corporate organization.
Amazing, because
Yeah.
10 years ago, companies, you wouldn't have ever thought that a company would be like, yeah, sure, like let's help out the local community and hire an external supplier off our own back to go and support community initiatives or go and support local areas, which is huge.
Yeah, and it's really exciting. So later on, I'm going to make protein energy balls with a community group.
I love it.
Yeah, but the kind of it's that kind of area of the business is quite exciting, because like I love creating energy balls and talking about that kind of area of it. But at the moment, I'm kind of then developing like a program that can be delivered that I don't necessarily need to deliver myself. So I've now got that vision in terms of being able to scale, whereas before I just didn't have any kind of idea of how that would have been possible. So there's that kind of area, but I've also started doing some kind of things around like sustainable eating. So some companies have come to me and they want to deliver all around mental well-being, but there's big kind of sustainability things that they need to meet. So I'm linking up with other experts who kind of do things around foraging and seasonal eating, and I'm learning loads as well, which is fab. But it's loads of different areas, which keeps it quite fresh.
I love that. And it's the room for creativity that is really important. I think a lot of people, when they start selling to corporate companies, can think, oh, well, they only want really corporate stuff and they want everything to be delivered by a person with a briefcase, with some kind of like death by PowerPoint presentation. And actually, it's this idea that corporate companies are looking for new perspectives, and they're looking to change, and they're looking to contribute in different ways. And the image will shift probably over the next 100 years. I certainly won't be alive for it, but there'll be a point in time, I believe, where people actually think about corporate companies and think, actually, there are companies and they're doing good for their employees, or they're doing good for the local community. And it's exciting that you're part of that change right at the beginning.
Yeah. And I think that's what's quite nice with, especially with construction firms, is that yes, they have to meet certain KPIs, but they are so passionate about doing more. And I think that's what really aligns with me, because when I first set up my business, the whole idea around setting up Mind Nourishing was that I was working in a housing association with deprived communities, and basically I was noticing that they were severely depressed, really anxious, couldn't leave the house, and I was like trying to deliver this well-being project to try and get them to the local sports clubs or whatever, and there were mental health issues were kind of really, really impacting them, so they couldn't leave the house. And that was kind of why I wanted to set up my business, to help people like that. And it's incredible actually how my business is now developed, that I'm helping corporate organizations, but I'm also now back to delivering where I really wanted to help, like those people who might need support on eating well on a budget, and kind of supporting with food banks. And so it's incredible that I'm being able to do that, but through corporate contracts, which is good.
It's incredibly different. And I think it's also one of the things that I always talk about is the pay is very different. It's very different getting paid when you're running your own business, because you are your own salesperson. So you are directly in control of what you're getting paid. It's terrifying when you leave a job that is a steady salary and that's coming in every month, and then suddenly you are solely responsible for what you bill and also what you earn, and that's a big difference. And I think that there's also a misconception that, companies just want like surface level awareness trainings. Everyone's, I know that I get a lot of health and wellness practitioners who'll say, oh, they just want a 250 quid training as a tick box exercise. And actually that's not the experience you're seeing. You're really challenging their perceptions around what's possible. And paid a lot more, which is nice. That's what we want.
And what I'm finding now is more than ever that people don't want a one-off, like they're putting together kind of like yearly programs, and they want to have that like consistency in terms of people getting to know the person who's delivering. So I'm working with some housing association. Well, I've probably been working for them for up to 2 years now, delivering regular sessions and really getting to know their kind of staff members and kind of having that continuity. But yeah, I think businesses more than ever are kind of investing in well-being. And I think nutrition, well, I'm obviously biased, but I think nutrition is an area that is really exciting because everyone has to eat. So everyone's got a little bit of interest around it. So
even if you hate cooking like me, you still like food.
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? So it's kind of a kind of a pull in, I think, in terms of people don't want to speak about mood, or maybe actually that they're not even interested in their well-being, but the fact of it being a social occasion when maybe people are sat round together at lunchtime, like it just adds so many different elements of supporting well-being from all different areas, which is quite so great.
I love that. And it's so nice to see like how the structure has helped you do it, because I think it's one of those things I get people who will say to me all the time, oh, what's an up and coming area, or which industry should I sell to? Where am I going to make more money or quicker money or whatever? And I can say it a whole million, thousand, billion times. There isn't one. It's about what you do. It's about how you go ahead and use your sales process to cultivate the result that you want. And that's what you've done in an area where people would traditionally be like, or have said to you, I'm sure in the past, oh, Laura, like nobody wants nutritionists. They're only going to pay them like tiny amounts of money to do tick box workshops, and then off you go, and you're going to have to get lots and lots of clients. It's going to be hard. But the sales process that you've designed, you've developed, you've created, you've used the system to build for yourself, that's the thing that's paid off into you winning those bigger contracts, helping those deprived communities, making real change. Organizations that people would have been like, oh, they won't have any budgets, don't bother. Like, so it's really, really cool to see that growth.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think maybe even myself, I had those doubts initially starting, like, I'm not sure this is going to work, but I'm just going to follow the process and see what happens, which is why like it's always super exciting when like going into the C-suite and just sharing wins and like sending you the emails, or kind of putting posts being like, oh, I've had from my like business income year already, and it's like 3 months in. Like it's exciting when you start adding up, even if it is like slightly smaller projects with some organizations, they do add up. And it's especially then when you get some big contracts alongside the smaller contracts, it just helps you relax a little bit.
And gives you time to chill out on holiday, smashing wood.
Yeah.
I love it. So as a final question to you then, it's the same that I ask every single time we do one of these episodes, but if there was somebody that was sat on the fence about joining the C-suite, what would you say to them? What would your bit of advice be?
So my bit of advice would be that like I was quite scared like investing in myself, because there's always that kind of doubt, like, oh, will it work for me? But I can 100% say that if you actually just do the work and follow the process, like it will work for you, because you will start getting more leads. You'll start learning how to convert those leads, and then how to follow up on the leads after you've got the work. So it just, for me, it gave me the structure which I desperately needed. I was 100% magpie chasing shiny things, and the kind of structure around the C-suite just gave me that focus of the core business things I needed to work on. And at the same time, I think why I think it's so important is because it actually helps with my resilience a little bit, because rather than being like, oh no, they hate me, they hate this proposal, they don't want to work with me because it's personal, I was just like, it's fine, I've got like 3 other proposals that are out there, like I don't have to.
One.
Yeah, it's fine, like other people can love me, I've got a husband, that's fine. Like I'm there here for like a working relationship. And I think the C-suite allowed me to kind of separate myself from my business a little bit at a time maybe when in B2C, like I was the business and everything did feel personal if it or didn't kind of buy my thing or say yes to the proposal. So I think someone who's kind of maybe like on the fence, who is a little bit of a magpie like I used to be and just needs a little bit of structure, then I think it's a no-brainer. Like it's 100% changed my business and I think created it more of a sustainable kind of business rather than a let's just see how this goes kind of vibe that I started with.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on today. Honestly, this has been amazing. And I know that there'll be loads of people out there who are like, oh God, I'm Laura. Like I'm Laura too. Yeah. But if people are listening and they think, oh, I've got clients that should be doing this kind of stuff, or I work for a company and I would love to see Laura in there delivering a workshop for us, or I know somebody that Laura needs to be in touch with, where should they connect with you? Where's best?
So I normally hang out on LinkedIn now, not Instagram. So yeah, so it'd either be Laura Bryan or Mind Nourishing on Instagram, or just mindnourishing.com for my website.
Amazing. And as always, guys, if you've got a lot from this episode, it's really important for everybody that you go and, message Laura and say, hey, look, this is the breakthrough I had from that episode. Because I think it's one of those weird things. We always assume that episodes go into the ether and that people are just not there, but it's not the case. If you've had a win from this episode, or you listen, you think, oh, actually I'm exactly like that and I really appreciate Laura sharing X, Y, and Z, do go send a message, say, look, I really love that you said that, it's really inspired me. Because it's just nice to know that the stuff that you've done of an afternoon makes a difference to somebody.
It's always exciting getting a LinkedIn notification now, isn't it? So always keen.
It's so funny because Facebook, I don't even check my social, like my personal notifications anymore. I just like whatever, people do things. But LinkedIn, I'm always like, oh, I've even got Owen on LinkedIn these days.
Really? Well, my husband's on there as well. He's becoming an influencer.
Yeah, it's a thing. So there you go. All the cool kids are on LinkedIn. Please do go and connect with Laura if you've enjoyed this episode, and let her know what breakthroughs you got from it. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right, guys, as ever, we will catch you on the flip side, which makes me sound much cooler than I am, in the next episode.